Hey there, I assume you've all heard the news already, but in case you haven't, it has been confirmed that a new Half-Life game, HLX, is actively in development and from all it seems, not far from being finished. Huge shout out to Gabe Follower and Tyler McVicker, who are leading the charge on getting all this info to us. You should definitely check out their videos on HLX. I will recap some things, but mostly, this video will be my commentary on the findings. Me being someone that has been deeply involved in the community for about a decade now, and have been following everything related to new Valve projects closely ever since. Today I'm here to pose a certain question. Before I do that, subscribe for more Valve content and also to stay updated on everything HLX. Thanks. So first of all, one thing is for certain. We are definitely getting a new Half-Life game. And probably sometime soon. No matter what HLX may be in the end, this is great news. However, I see many people proclaiming that this is Half-Life 3, which is a claim I'd be cautious about. Now a very brief rundown of the recent discoveries that mainly come from Gabe Follower's video. Everything we know about HLX comes from snippets of codes or other leaks like Valve employees' LinkedIns. What was found in these codes is lots of Source 2 content relating to smarter NPCs than most games have, vehicle simulations, tons of new Source 2 technology like hair simulation, dynamic weather, and day and night cycles, and most importantly, a huge amount of Zen-related stuff. Zen of course being the alien dimension in the Half-Life universe. All this points towards this game being at least semi-open world, as a linear game wouldn't have too much need for stuff like dynamic weather. Though then again, Gabe did want to include real-time moss in Half-Life 1. So who truly knows? There are tons of smaller things leaked as well, pretty much all of which regards different Zen creatures. But this rough summary covers most of it. The main question for this video will be, is this truly the Half-Life 3 we've been waiting for? Tyler McVicker, a more often than not trusted source, just kidding, love you Tyler, said that he personally very cautiously believes that Project White Sand is Half-Life 3. I'll get to Project White Sand in a second. Gabe Follower titled this video, New Half-Life 3 is real, though he never claims in the video that HLX is Half-Life 3. Only that this is a new Half-Life game and that it's a sequel to Half-Life Alyx, which is a very important distinction. Remember, Half-Life Alyx is a prequel. Project White Sand, by the way, is huge news that were quickly forgotten about after the new HLX leaks. The title Project White Sand was leaked on the LinkedIn of a voice actress. This may or may not just be an alternative title for HLX. Tyler McVicker proposed in this new video that there is a chance that 2 Half-Life games are currently being worked on, which is an aspect I'll get back to in a bit. One thing to note about Project White Sand is that White Sand sounds like the Arctic, the likely place of an Episode 2 sequel. Alternatively, Black Mesa is canonically located in the desert of New Mexico, in which a place called White Sands exists. For now, we truly don't know if Project White Sand is just HLX or not. I imagine 3 possible scenarios for HLX. While all of them would be great, one of them I think many would believe to be a disappointment, one would be nice but many people would be disappointed as well, and one of them is Half-Life 3, which I'll call the sequel scenario for reasons I'll explain later. This may sound like a self-explaining scenario, but I do have 3 possibilities for a sequel that I want to talk about. Let me first get into the one scenario that I believe would disappoint many, which is that HLX will be a Deckard prototype. What does Deckard prototype mean, you may ask? Let me explain. Valve has been coming out with tons of patents regarding a new VR headset, the Deckard. Information on this headset is scattered, but everything from it being a standalone computer and headset at once to eye tracking to being able to play 2D Steam games in VR has been thrown around. The exact details don't matter though. What matters is that it has been in development for a while and could potentially be announced any day now. Similar to the Steam Deck, the Index VR headset, or any other Valve project, there wasn't a huge build-up to them being released. Valve likes to just release a trailer and then release something out of nowhere. Valve isn't Bethesda in the way that they announce a project 12 years before it's released. Oh, well, sometimes they are. What I want to point out is that each time they release new hardware, they release a flagship title alongside it. This happened back when the HTC Vive released, which was the main VR headset advertised on Steam before the Index. This is where we got The Lab, a Portal-inspired collection of minigames. It also happened when the Index was released. Only 3 months after it was released did Half-Life Alyx get announced, and it was sold in bundles with the Index. And people who owned the Index got bonus content in Half-Life Alyx. When the Steam Deck released, we got Aperture Desk Job, another Portal-inspired minigame similar to The Lab that was created to show the player the controls of the Steam Deck, and also just made for a fun experience on its own. This game was heavily inspired by Portal, as this time you even had a code to talk to and were actually in Aperture Science. We even got new voice lines recorded by J.K. Simmons for this project, who returned to voice Cave Johnson. What I'm saying is, Valve is not only ready to go all out on their flagship titles, but it has basically become a guarantee that there will always be one with a new hardware launch. The only thing we can't be sure about just now is if this title will be part of the Half-Life franchise. Don't frown upon this possibility too much just yet though, as Half-Life Alyx for example is obviously way more than a prototype. So who knows what we could be getting. It's also important to note that HLX will most certainly be non-VR. However, aside from Tyler's theory that there may be 2 games in the works, Valve has been experimenting with asynchronous games, which refers to multiple players where some are in VR and some are not. This could be the case for HLX, after all we have no confirmation if it's a single player game or not, and the Deckard could then be the preferred device for this game. This would especially make sense if the Deckard turns out to be a standalone VR headset, meaning no PC connection needed. Aside from Valve always releasing a flagship title for the new hardware, I believe speaks most to the Deckard prototype scenario being the case is that thus far, everything that has been discovered relating to HLX is Zen stuff. To create a full-on sequel to Half-Life, especially anything you might want to title with 3, surely you would need more than just Zen. And hey, HLX, Half-Life Zen maybe? Gabe Newell said that he has regrets about how little they explored Zen in Half-Life 1. Perhaps this is them catching up by releasing a full Zen game under the guise of a flagship demo game for a new piece of hardware. So this is my first of 3 scenarios. That HLX is not Half-Life 3 but rather a tech demo of unknown scale meant to show the possibilities of the Deckard. If this turns out to be the case, I personally imagine it being bigger than even Aperture Desktop, but not as big as Half-Life Alyx or a Half-Life 3. I'd imagine it to be anything from a fun sandbox created for asynchronous gameplay between a VR and non-VR player, to a short, linear experience you expect from Half-Life. It may also be as long as Half-Life Alyx was, who knows. It being a regular, linear Half-Life game for the Deckard may sound unlikely at first, given that HLX seems to be a non-VR game, but the Deckard is also rumored to be able to run 2D Steam games in VR. Who knows what that could mean? Valve could theoretically also be working on a different hardware product, Steam Deck 2 maybe? But anyways, this is the first of 3 scenarios that I deem possible. The second possibility is one that I believe less would be disappointed by, but would still not be Half-Life 3, for which I'll need to get into Half-Life Alyx and what the word sequel could mean in this case. Now, spoiler alert for Half-Life Alyx's ending, which if you don't want Half-Life Alyx spoiled, skip to the Half-Life 3 part. And come on, it's been 4 years now. As many of you may know, the ending of Half-Life Alyx took place past Episode 2, even though the game itself was a prequel. So a sequel could mean 2 things in this case. Either HLX will continue post the time travel at the end of Half-Life Alyx, meaning it is a sequel to both Half-Life Alyx and Episode 2, or it will continue post Half-Life Alyx, but not post time travel. So it will be a sequel to Half-Life Alyx, but not to Episode 2. Time travel is a fun story element, but it's a damn pain to write a story around. And I could get into full time travel theorem, but it's too big of a headache really. Basically, time travel is whatever the writers want it to be. But here's one possibility that causes the least hassle in the timeline that I personally believe to be true. 5 years before Half-Life 2, Alex got into the vault and the G-Man rewarded her efforts by allowing her to save her father in the future. This is where the game ends, with past Alex in stasis. What I believe is that past Alex got deployed back on the same Earth at the same timeline sometime in the future, with her memory of what happened inside the vault wiped. Her getting put out of stasis could be minutes or years after freeing the G-Man in the vault. After this, Half-Life 2 happened as regular. Episode 2 happens, and right when we saw the credits roll on Episode 2, time moved backwards in front of the eyes of Gordon, Eli and Alex, back to before Eli was killed, just as we saw it portrayed in Half-Life Alyx, to which they either blacked out for a moment, perhaps saw young Alex actually come in and kill the advisor, or something in between that, after which the current Alex got taken away. After this, the post-credit scene happens. This would have the timeline of Half-Life remain intact with no multiple timeline shenanigans, which I believe is the least complicated way, the way that I hope to be true. In reality, once you introduce time travel elements, you create basically an infinite amount of scenarios that could be true. But this is what I believe to be the most simple way of going forward. Why am I telling you this? Basically, it's just that there's possibly stuff left to be explored in the 5-year gap between Half-Life Alyx and Half-Life 2. Possibly even with Alex still around, which is what the second theory regarding HLX is. Another prequel. The Prequel Scenario. I believe many would be disappointed by this, but I don't deem this as unlikely, and frankly I'd even be happy. Here's why. Half-Life Alyx is a prequel, which should theoretically limit it storytelling wise, but it didn't. Aside from the obvious retconning of the Episode 2 ending, it also expanded on more aspects of the Half-Life world. One of the main things being exploring and expanding the mystery of the G-Man. We learned that he is actually able to be captured. Frankly, I believe he got captured on purpose after traveling back in time in order to grant Alex the wish of her father being revived in the future because he needed Eli for his plans. But that's for another video. We also learned that he can time travel, and that he just stole not only past Alex, but also current Alex after Episode 2. Aside from the G-Man's mystery being explored a bit, we also learned about new players in the common hierarchy, with which I'm mainly referring to the mysterious Shadow Lady, who's part of this mosaic of a theory I'm trying to propose. Eric Wolper, one of the writers at Valve, who has worked on Half-Life since Episode 1 and on Portal 1 and 2, confirmed that there are future plans for the scientist, but that they are unwilling to disclose more info. Alex threw a wrench into what we believe we knew about Half-Life and the lore, which is awesome. Here's what I personally believe. I imagine Half-Life Alyx as the first part of more. I expect there to be at least one more game set before Half-Life 2 or at least Episode 2 that delves deeper into the G-Man, the scientist, and more important background info that we need to know before we finally are ready for Half-Life 3. I would love for this to be the case, because the world of Half-Life is so incredibly rich in story and so little has ever been made of it. A main reason people believe it to be Half-Life 3 is that there's tons of code talking about the HEV suit, which we know only Gordon wears in Half-Life. Except that's not the case. Colette Green is one of the two protagonists of Half-Life Decay, an often forgotten mission-based co-op title of Half-Life. It's a great game, and it left us with the unanswered question of what happened to Colette Green. The other protagonist, Gina Cross, is confirmed to have died in Zen. This is known because you can find her dead body in opposing force. Colette Green, however, she's still out there, presumably. What if she's stranded in Zen? What if that's the game? What if we learn more about the Vortigons and their doings, perhaps? The Vortigons are still rather unexplored in the Half-Life world. Perhaps Half-Life Alyx serves as extra build-up to the G-Man, and Half-Life X serves as extra build-up for the Vortigons. Perhaps a potential third prequel could set up the Borealis further. What if HLX is Project White Sands, and it's about Colette Green in Black Mesa after Half-Life 1? The only way I could see the prequel scenario not being the case is if the supposed sequel is not the last Half-Life game, which leads me straight into the next scenario. The third and final option. HLX is a sequel to Episode 2. What many right now would call Half-Life 3. Sequel remains the better overarching term though. Let me elaborate. As I said, I personally deem it likely that a sequel to Episode 2, aka Episode 3, will be the end of Half-Life, specifically of the Half-Life 2 era. We have been waiting for a sequel for 17 years. No way they'd have a new sequel not be the end. Right? Hold that thought. Perhaps I could still release more prequels set in Half-Life 2 times after a sequel, but who would really care? Once the mystery of the G-Man and the Borealis will presumably be mostly solved in the final installment, is there anything left? You may have noticed me sneak in the term Half-Life 2 era about 20 seconds ago when I said that the next true sequel will be the end of the Half-Life 2 era of Half-Life. Let me explain. Mark Laidlaw explained that Episode 3 was not meant to be the end of Half-Life as a whole, and that Episode 3 is not Half-Life 3. Half-Life 3 would be a possibility after Episode 3, as Episode 3 was only meant to end the Half-Life 2 era. He explained that Half-Life 3 would be for a new generation of writers to create, that he only had plans for Half-Life 2 and its episodes. He expected Half-Life 3 would be as big of a jump from Half-Life 2 as Half-Life 2 was from Half-Life 1. And while certain characters or themes may cross over, you wouldn't necessarily miss out on anything if you skipped Half-Life 1 or Half-Life 2 and just went to Half-Life 3 immediately, similar to how you can play Half-Life 2 without playing Half-Life 1 first. I've paraphrased Mark Laidlaw a ton here, but this was the gist of what he was saying. So with this explanation out of the way and the possibility of HLX being a direct sequel to Half-Life 2 Episode 2, the question in this scenario arises of which of the two Valve are planning to go for. Are they creating Half-Life 2 Episode 3 or Half-Life 3? Of course, only in spirit. It doesn't matter what they may title the game. Half-Life White Sands as a stand-in for Half-Life 2 Episode 3 would sound nice. Those episodic titles are way too long anyways. There is 3 possible scenarios here, which are titled Episode 3, Half-Life 3 and Episode 4. Let's start with Episode 3. If they create Episode 3, it would mean that the story and themes of Half-Life 2, specifically the fight of the common occupation on Earth, would most likely come to an end, with only a potential Half-Life 3 far in the future being left. If they create Half-Life 3, it would mean that they abandon the episodic format, which I would partially understand. It's been so long and hyped up that I would understand by titling the game Half-Life 3, but if they go with this route, I can only imagine that it would actually be the final game in the franchise. They will wrap up every mystery that currently exists in the Half-Life universe. Abandon the idea of Mark Laidlaw that future writers could explore future ideas in the overarching Half-Life universe and instead just end it with a final game. This would be really disappointing in my opinion. Sure, there could still be future titles, but it would just be awkward to title at this point. To call a sequel to Episode 2 Half-Life 3, even though it would be set in the Half-Life 2 era, would be like titling Half-Life Decay as Half-Life 2, because that one is just as clearly set in the Half-Life 1 era as a sequel to Episode 2 in the Half-Life 2 era. And we know that a sequel to Episode 2 would be in the Half-Life 2 era, because of the many unanswered questions of that era, specifically around the Borealis. Now I mentioned that there are 3 possibilities in the sequel scenario, the third one being Episode 4. I really struggle to put this one into words, as we are like 10 layers deep now. And thank you for even watching at this point, we're so deep into it. So to put the Episode 4 scenario as simply as possible, this theoretic sequel wouldn't rule out a future Half-Life 3. It would just mean that the Half-Life 2 era also doesn't end with the next sequel, meaning that Gordon's story and the common occupation of Earth wouldn't end. It would continue in another future title, Episode 4 perhaps, which is why I called this scenario that way. I said that I deem this unlikely, but I can't rule it out either. One reason I deem this and other prequel/non-final game scenarios more likely is because of the inclusion of Zen. As stated, they're going all in on Zen for HLX. I simply don't see a possibility in which a final installment in the Half-Life 2 era, or franchise as a whole even perhaps as discussed, would need this much Zen, or any Zen at all for that matter. This theme would only make sense in a non-final game in my opinion. Here's a full chart of all the theories I've proposed. Yeah, it's pretty confusing. So of these 2 and 3 halves of theories I proposed, what do I believe to be the most likely scenario? Just to mention once more, Tyler McVicker said that there is a chance that 2 games might be coming, one of them possibly also being VR. So really the question is what 2 games I deem most likely. I am 100% certain that HLX won't be the final Half-Life 2 era game. I most likely suspect this game to be either a prequel Deckard demo or just a regular prequel game like Half-Life Alyx, just most likely non-VR. If 2 games are truly in the works, I expect it to be both of those. If this happens to not be the case, I expect HLX to be a sequel, but not the final part of the Half-Life 2 era, aka the Episode 4 scenario as I called it in this video. If this isn't the case, the only thing that is left over would be for it to actually be the finale, and that it either marks the end of the Half-Life 2 era, or perhaps just Half-Life as a whole. This would IMO be the most disappointing path. I know it must come one day, just that I'm not ready just now. Thankfully I deem this to be unlikely for now, especially given that 2 games are being worked on right now. This means that the next game can't be the final one, unless one of them truly is just a mini tech demo like The Lab or Aperture Desk Job. So what do you think? I would love to see speculation in the comments on this topic. It's exciting times in the Half-Life community. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date on HLX, Project Whitesands, the 20th Half-Life 2 anniversary, Half-Life 2 RGX, the 2 new announced Entropy 0 games, the Black Mesa Blue Shift update and everything else basically. Otherwise, thank you for watching.